YoYoJam's inception begins in Florida, and would be founded under some bizarre circumstances. YoYoJam began at the location of Advanced Air International Incorporated, of all things, a company that specializes in manufacturing fans and fan blades with plastic injection molding. The owner of this company, Dale Bell, was an avid fan of cars. In July of 1999, Dale was attending a car show when a friend approached him with an imbalanced yo-yo that wobbled. The friend gave him a simple challenge, to make it a balanced yo-yo that didn't wobble. So, of course, Dale went ahead and made a balanced yo-yo. Dale experimented with plastics and metals, but consistently found that the metal yo-yos he would tool would be too heavy. So, he shifted to a plastic mold, and after various molds, eventually settled on the design of the first YoYoJam yo-yo, the Spin Jammer. This had sparked interest in Dale, so he began to explore the world of yo-yoing. He asked his daughter to research yo-yoing, and she found out about the world contest happening in Hawaii that year, so Dale made arrangements to go to Hawaii. Before Dale could begin to explore potential sponsorships and brands, Dale needed a name for his products. YoYoJam's name stemmed from a small music studio that served as stress relief for Dale and his colleagues. A friend of his, R.B. Johnson, was a singer and songwriter. Together, Dale and R.B. Johnson would write a song about yo-yos, to which they named YoYoJam. The name of this song would then go on to be Dale's choice for the name of his yo-yo company. Dale would then go on to inquire from colleagues of his about local competitors. He would be sent in the direction of Dave Brunner, nicknamed Bandit, who would go on to point Dale in the direction of Peyton Sutherland, and compel him to explore another shape for yo-yos. Dale would listen to his advice about the new shape and make the Dragonfly. The Dragonfly's name would later be changed to the Dragon Jam due to a copyright issue with Duncan. Once Worlds came around, Dale's yo-yos were met with decent reception. Peyton Sutherland would make it to finals that year using Dragon Jam. This was a massive achievement for a company as new as YoYoJam. Linda Sengpil and Bill de Blanc were judges at this competition, and they immediately took notice of Dale and his yo-yos. Eventually, this would lead to Dale making a signature yo-yo for Linda, and through the input of Linda herself, Bill de Blanc, and other big players, Dale would make the original Spin Factor. After this, YoYoJam would begin to cement themselves as a competitive powerhouse, and would eventually grow into one of, if not the most, influential companies of all time. YoYoJam spearheaded many innovations in the community and held multiple patents involving yo-yo design. Some were controversial, such as the patent on outer rim material, as seen on many yo-yos where a second material, most often a metal, is mounted on the outermost rims of a yo-yo. This outer rim patent would prevent major yo-yos like the Dropneer from being sold by stores in the United States. Other innovations include the massive push from YoYoJam to use O-rings and eventually response pads. YoYoJam stood as one of the few companies that were given a license to manufacture and sell their own counterweights. At the time, Duncan had a patent on counterweights, so it was very rare for other companies to be given permission to manufacture their own. YoYoJam's approved counterweight was the Takeshi dice. Takeshi Matsuura's father designed a special counterweight. Inside the counterweight itself was a bearing, and the counterweight included an astro. An astro is a small bead that allows the player to play the astrojack style of 5A play. Finally, and possibly the single most important innovation in yo-yoing, YoYoJam would introduce something that would change the face of modern yo-yoing for years to come. The YoYoJam Patriot would release around 2001 or 2002, and it would be the first yo-yo ever released to utilize the large C-sized bearing. The C-sized bearing would eventually blow up into the golden standard, and today is the bearing size that sees the largest use. The adoption of the C-sized bearing would be so widespread that eventually it would start to get modified, and special versions such as the Yo-Yo Recreation Double Straight bearing and the Yo-Yo Factory Center Track bearing would be developed over time. But, of course, YoYoJam themselves would have to push the C-sized bearing themselves, something that would become a hot request of YoYoJam's competitive players. As mentioned earlier, the first yo-yo to ever use a C-sized bearing would be the YoYoJam Patriot, released in 2002. At the time, there wasn't anything quite like the Patriot. Not only was it the first yo-yo to use the C-sized bearing, but it also had uncommonly large specs for the time. At 58mm diameter and 47mm wide, even today the Patriot would be considered a slightly oversized plastic yo-yo. Eventually, the Patriot would get a follow-up yo-yo, the Journey. The Journey would then have a special release, specifically a signature for Dave Schultz. YoYoJam was no stranger to iconic yo-yos that would go on to inspire many other yo-yos. One yo-yo in particular would go on to inspire many yo-yos that would stand to be historically important. The YoYoJam Hitman, a yo-yo famous for being the yo-yo used in the first place performance at 2003 Worlds, was at the time a top-of-the-line competitive yo-yo. The yo-yo was primarily plastic with aluminum weight rings. The Hitman had a modifiable response area and came with something called shims to widen the response gap. Today, it's an undersized, semi-responsive organic yo-yo with high walls and likely wouldn't hold up to the modern stressors that are put on yo-yos. But for the time, each of these characteristics was fairly standard, aside from the undersized aspect, as the Hitman was designed to be slightly undersized for the time at a 54mm diameter and 40mm wide. The Hitman's precedence would go on to inspire multiple yo-yos. After Worlds 2003, the Hitman would get a re-release in 2004, the Hybrid Hitman, getting the name Hybrid from the hybrid response system it utilized, comprising of Starburst and an O-ring. The original Hitman only used an O-ring response system. In 2005, Diffio would release their own modified version of the Hitman, the Zipman, specifically modified by Frank Diffio. The Zipman is a Hitman fitted with the hubs of a Zip Fly and given recessed diff pad response. Also, the Zipman's aluminum rims were treated with a satin finish. In 2006, the Hitman would go on to be one of the key inspirations behind the COYW Peak, being mentioned on the original spec sheet for the first Peak. The Hitman would also go on to inspire the Dark Magic and subsequently the Dark Magic 2. These two yo-yos would be some of YoYoJam's best-selling yo-yos. The Dark Magic and Dark Magic 2 both have plastic bodies with metal weight rings. The original Dark Magic was slightly narrower at 41mm wide than the Dark Magic 2, which was 43.7mm wide. Their diameters are nearly the same, but the Dark Magic 2 would be 2 to 3 grams lighter at 67 grams compared to the original Dark Magic's 69 to 70 grams. The Dark Magic 2, in particular, was YoYoJam's best-selling yo-yo during the 2010s. Because of this, the Dark Magic 2 would see many different special editions, such as the Acid Frog and UK editions. The plastic version of the Hitman, the Lin Fury, would be the yo-yo Takeshi Matsuura used to claim the championship title in the 5A division of Worlds in 2008. The Lin Fury matches the specs of the Hitman almost 1-to-1. Later, Takeshi's design input would go on to make the AI in 2010, which had a full aluminum body with brass rims. The exact specs of the AI placed at a hefty 70 grams and an undersized 40mm width and 53mm diameter. Later, in 2011, the AI was followed up by the Destiny, which was a plastic hybrid version of the AI. Instead of outer ring metal, however, the metal would be placed to make up the body of the yo-yo. The Destiny had mostly the same specs, but weighed in at a much lighter 62 grams. Finally, the last of the Takeshi lineup would be the Quest. The Quest was Delrin with brass weight rings shifted towards the middle of the yo-yo. The Quest was 67.5 grams, was 40mm wide, and had a 54.8mm diameter. These sorts of high weights were pretty standard for the time, even if the yo-yos were used by speed players, such as Hiroyuki Suzuki, who had multiple signatures while he was part of YoYoJam. The speeder would be the first of Mickey's signatures at YoYoJam, and would also be the yo-yo he would use to claim his 1A World Championship titles between 2004 and 2006. The speeder was the first yo-yo from YoYoJam to use the hybrid response system. The specs of the speeder are irritatingly inconsistent. The Yo-Yo Wiki places the weight of the speeder at 68 grams, but other sources like Reviews and Rewind place the weight of the speeder at around 65 to 66 grams. Other specs, like the width, are just outright hard to come by. For the sake of reliability and authority though, we're going to go with the specs and information given by Rewind. Rewind states that the weight clocks in at 66.6 grams. The width places at a shockingly narrow 36.82 millimeters, and the diameter is a fairly modern 56 millimeters. The build, according to Rewind, is a plastic, specifically polycarbonate body with brass rims. The follow-up to the speeder, the Speedmaker, was a fully plastic variation of the speeder. The specs were fairly similar, with the difference being potentially within a margin of error, aside from the weight, which the Speedmaker weighed in at 61.5 grams. Under YoYoJam, Mickey had many signatures, but not all of Mickey's signatures were created equal. Specifically, the Phenom, Mickey's favorite of his signatures while he was at YoYoJam, was released in 2010. The Phenom weighed in at 69 grams, was particularly narrow at 39.6 millimeters wide, but had a standard diameter of 56 millimeters. The body was made of aluminum and the rims were brass, though a special edition of the Phenom T, had titanium rims. The Phenom was famous for playing much lighter than it weighed. Rapid fire, Mickey's other YoYoJam signatures were the Triple Jam, released in 2006, at least allegedly, was a shared signature between Hiroyuki Suzuki, Ben Condi, and John Narum. The Triple Jam was a tri-material yo-yo, but the specs, it seems, have been lost to time. The materials are plastic, some sort of synthetic material called Heavy Gravity by YoYoJam, and rubber. The Speeder 2, another follow-up to the Speeder, was released in 2011. According to Rewind, the specs are as follows: 63.8 grams, 54.9mm diameter, and 37.87mm wide, with a polycarbonate body and brass rims. According to Rewind, the Meteor was released in 2008, weighed in at 66.8 grams, had a 55.9mm diameter, and was 39.75mm wide, with a full aluminum body. The Phenomism was a plastic version of the Phenom released in 2010. According to Rewind, the Phenomism weighed 67.7 grams, had a diameter of 56.1mm, and a width of 39.05mm, with a polycarbonate body and brass rims. According to Rewind, the Chaser weighed 70.8 grams, had a diameter of 56.3mm, and a width of 37.6mm, with a plastic body and hidden aluminum rims inside the body. The Chaser would later get a bimetal version called the Metal Chaser. However, the specs of the Metal Chaser seem to have been largely wiped from the internet, as not even Rewind has a spec sheet for the yo-yo. Not even the Yo-Yo Addict website has a product page for the Metal Chaser. Certain sources also cite that the Metal Chaser was released after Hiroyuki Suzuki left YoYoJam to found Something. However, I don't think it's much of a stretch to say that the legacy YoYoJam left hasn't affected Mickey's design philosophies, as even today, you can still see certain characteristics of those classic YoYoJam yo-yos in yo-yos like the Anglan. Mickey, as recent as October of 2021, even designed and released his own take on the Speeder. YoYoJam's prevalence can't go without mentioning the signature of Dale Bell, the founder and owner of YoYoJam, the Night Moves. The Night Moves saw many reiterations and redesigns over the years. Most notably, the Night Moves 3, released in 2003, would be the first yo-yo ever to use titanium rims. For the sake of time, I won't detail the specs of every single Night Moves, as there are 9 different variations of the Night Moves. Instead, if I can find them, I'll simply put them on screen now. Even today, the legacy of the Night Moves series was honored by iYoYo with the release of the Night Moves X. The first foray yo-yo from YoYoJam, the OS1, was released in 2001. The weight of the OS1 has been lost, but had a starburst response, was 40mm wide, and had a 74.33mm diameter, with rubber rims and a plastic body. Though it was the first foray yo-yo from YoYoJam, it wasn't considered quite nearly as big of a deal as the YoYoJam Aquarius, which was a much bigger release. The Aquarius was released originally in 2001 as a signature of Hironori Me. The Aquarius, according to Rewind, weighs 74.5 grams, has a diameter of 75.65mm, and a width of 48.06mm, with a plastic body and rubber rims. The Aquarius was an extremely popular release, competing with the Duncan Flying Panda and the Shinwoo Griffin Wing. Dave Schultz used the Aquarius to set the record for the longest shoot the moon. The Aquarius would be discontinued in 2002, to be replaced by the Free Agent in 2003. But due to the failure of the Free Agent, the Aquarius was brought back. The Aquarius lasted all the way until 2009 before it would finally be discontinued for good. The Aquarius wouldn't be the only popular foray yo-yo from YoYoJam. The Big Ben, the signature of Ben Condi, was released in 2003. The Big Ben, according to Rewind, weighs 66.7 grams, has a diameter of 64.02mm, and a width of 43.82mm, with a body made of plastic. The Big Ben was popular, and John Higbee himself painted a couple Big Bens. The follow-up to the Big Ben, the Bigger Ben, very likely released in 2004, and was, ironically, a smaller yo-yo. Specifically, the diameter was smaller at 62.2mm, was 37.5mm wide, and had a body made of plastic with metal rims, which were very likely aluminum. Because of these changes, the Bigger Ben was actually not as popular as the Big Ben, and would eventually be discontinued by YoYoJam. YoYoJam also had a host of popular two-way yo-yos, such as the Sunset Trajectory. The Sunset Trajectory is special in that it had caught on despite being a non-Raider styled two-way yo-yo, and eventually, this would lead to the development of the Unleashed. And with the Sunset Trajectory, I have detailed some of the most famous YoYoJam yo-yos. Of course, there are many others. More iterations on the Hitman, such as the Hitman X, released in 2013 to honor the 10-year anniversary of the original Hitman, was a Hitman with some minor tweaks, such as silicone response pads and minor spec tweaks. Then there were others, like the Jambu, a fully unresponsive yo-yo made of bamboo with aluminum weight rings. But not every single yo-yo released by YoYoJam is special or holds particularly historical precedence. Sure, YoYoJam themselves are important, but not every single one of their yo-yos made big waves. So, for the sake of time, I'm opting to end the section dedicated to their yo-yos here. Every yo-yo I've discussed is legendary or important in some way, just like YoYoJam's team. YoYoJam's team comprises some of the biggest players in yo-yoing history, a who's who of the best and most influential players. From old boomers using loopers to win in the 90s, to modern legends. Chances are, a member of the YoYoJam team is either your favorite player or your favorite player's favorite player. If you were somebody, you were on the YoYoJam team. Then, there are the individuals that would become major cornerstones of the community in some way, whether they would go on to found a major yo-yoing storefront, or become a major source of trick tutorials. The significance of the YoYoJam team cannot be understated. If you've ever shopped on Yo-Yo Expert, one of, if not the largest US-based yo-yo shops, you firsthand experienced the significance. Yo-Yo Expert was founded by Andre Boulay, who was responsible for the teaching of an entire generation of yo-yoers. Andre made a whole host of tutorials, most of which have been removed or replaced, that were found on the Yo-Yo Expert website. His signatures, the Dark Magic and the Dark Magic 2, were some of YoYoJam's best-selling yo-yos, and would go on to inspire multiple other designs. In particular, the Dark Magic 2 would see massive success, as Andre opted to use it in tutorials, and after founding Yo-Yo Expert, he would make the Dark Magic 2 his #1 recommended yo-yo. Today, Andre judges multiple contests, including the World Yo-Yo Contest, and has been crowned a National Yo-Yo Master in the United States. Andre would be a judge alongside Bill de Bois-Blanc. Bill was an old-age player, winning competitions in the 90s. Bill was the world champion in 1994, 1995, and 1997. On his homestead in the United States, Bill claimed 3 national titles 3 years in a row, from 1994 to 1996. Nowadays, he's a judge for the World Yo-Yo Contest and helps write the rules for not just the national US contest, but the World Yo-Yo Contest. Bill has been crowned a US National Yo-Yo Grandmaster. Brian Figueroa stands as a large name in the US's 4A yo-yoing scene. Brian has claimed multiple US national titles in the 4A division. Eric Koloski is a US national champion who claimed his national title in 2008. Ben Condi is especially well known for his engaging and well-choreographed 1A and 4A performances. Farrah Siegel was a personality of YoYoJam, appearing on live TV multiple times. Farrah appeared on The Martha Stewart Show, a Mountain Dew commercial, a Disney Channel commercial, a feature on the ABC Family Channel, and winning a game show. But Farrah wasn't the only member of YoYoJam that was seen on live television. Ian Johnson won the 2013 National Yo-Yo Contest and would later appear on America's Got Talent. Unfortunately, he got disqualified in the quarterfinals. John Naroom won the 2005 World Yo-Yo Contest 4A division, and in doing so was tied as the youngest world champion with Takumi Nagase. They'd remain tied until 2014, when Hajime Miura took first place in the 3A division at the World Yo-Yo Contest in 2014. John Steele was a big name for YoYoJam. If you're from that age of yo-yoing, you likely knew him better as Johnny Delval, or JD for short. JD went on a tear in 2003, winning the Bay Area Classic, US Nationals, and the World Yo-Yo Contest. JD would take all these competitions with the signature yo-yo, the Hitman, which would go on to inspire the Dark Magic, and be mentioned on the spec sheet created by Chris McCullen for the original Peak. JD's performances were famous for his use of grinds and stalls, and the man himself was well known for wearing a sleeveless black shirt. After this massive tear through the competition, JD would retire, and go on to found the yo-yo shop, Yo-Yo Best Buy. John Gates is widely credited as being the man that invented the 4A style of play as we know it today. Joseph Harris would win US Nationals in 2011 as well as 2008 and would be yet another member of YoYoJam to compete in America's Got Talent. Mo Chavez, known as Mo or Dr. Mo, was a yo-yo modder. He would go on to win 3 consecutive years through 2001 to 2003 of a niche world contest division, the modding division. Nathan Chrissy was a member of YoYoJam. He stands as the lead tournament organizer today, primarily of PNWRs, the World Yo-Yo Contest, and the Bay Area Classic. He's also a judge at many of these competitions. Rick Wyatt, famously known as Sir Rick, formerly held the record for the longest sleeper ever thrown. He claimed the record with his signature yo-yo, the Mega Spin Factor. Rick was yet another member of the YoYoJam team to be crowned a U.S. National Yo-Yo Master. Aaron Sparks, better known as Azza, founded the British Yo-Yo Association when he was 15. Azza organizes most UK competitions, has produced multiple apps and DVDs, and holds 3 Guinness World Records. Azza is also recognized as one of the innovators of bouncing solo ham. Age Demir helped many yo-yoers start yo-yoing. Age appeared on national television multiple times and was in multiple advertisements. Age judged most competitions held in Turkey, as well as essentially touring Turkey to spread the hobby around. He even administrated online Turkish yo-yoing forums. Eventually, Age studied physics and engineering at Istanbul Technical University to design yo-yos. Among some of the biggest names in YoYoJam's competitive team are historic, multi-title champions. Rei Iwakara was the dominating force for 4A. Rei holds 8 first-place Japan national titles and 6 first-place Worlds titles, all for 4A. He also holds a single first-place title for the World's AP division. Rei was a major innovator of the solo ham style. Then, there's the next big name, Takeshi Matsuura. Takeshi dominated the 5A scene with 7 different world titles for his 5A performances. When Takeshi got his 2008 title, he was the youngest world champion. Finally, the man that revolutionized standard 1A play through the late 2000s and early 2010s, Hiroyuki Suzuki. Famously known as Mickey, Hiroyuki won 3 consecutive years of the World Yo-Yo Contest 1A division from 2004 to 2006. But he didn't fall off after that. Every year after that, he got second place, until 2012, when he got first place again. As far as I am personally aware of, this is the most world titles in the 1A division that a single person has. Under YoYoJam, Hiroyuki had up to 8 signatures before leaving YoYoJam to found Something. Others include Jun Aramaki, who revolutionized 3A play. Yuki Spencer, the innovator of many popular tricks and combos, was sponsored by YoYoJam. Unfortunately, as far as I can tell, he never got a signature. Quentin Godet won the 2014 European Yo-Yo Contest's 4A division. Then Yasushi Furukawa, who claimed the championship title for the World Yo-Yo Contest 2010 2A division. Tessa Pichillo claimed the first place title in the 2014 World Yo-Yo Contest women's division. Iconic players like Kieran Cooper and Ann Cannoli even had a place on YoYoJam's team. Then, of course, we can't exclude Dale Bell. While he wasn't necessarily a player, Dale Bell had many contributions to yo-yoing. At one point, he had 4 patents involving yo-yos in some way. There are likely many more players that were members of this legendary team. Fact is, information surrounding the full YoYoJam player list and the actual size of the team can be hard to find. Some of the biggest names that I just went over were names brought up to me during proofreading or just in passing conversation. Hiroyuki Suzuki, one of the biggest players on that list, doesn't even get a passing mention on the Team YoYoJam page on the Yo-Yo Wiki. So, if there are players I missed, and even the proofreaders of the script missed, leave their names in the description and what they did and or achieved under YoYoJam, so we can get a full list going in the comments or in the description for accurate information. Information on YoYoJam is slowly disappearing, and reliability and accuracy is getting more and more scarce. This is ironic because YoYoJam is possibly the single most influential, innovative company maybe in the history of yo-yoing. YoYoJam did everything. They had a competitive team that dominated most divisions at world contests. They innovated yo-yo design in major ways, with the C-size bearing and becoming major progenitors of outer ring material. They had members in their team that innovated major play styles and pushed forward unique ideas to play with a spinning, gyroscopic toy. Modern players may look back and wonder when the next YoYoJam will come, but I don't necessarily think we should be looking for a next. YoYoJam was massive, but without them, the community would not look like what it looks like today. They set the groundwork, and everybody followed suit. Then there's people that wonder where YoYoJam would be today if they had never shut down. I realistically don't have an answer. I think it's possible they could be how Duncan is, cashing out on nostalgia and giving the old heads in the community everything they need to relive their adolescent years. But I also think it's possible that they could instead be major competitive spearheads, one of the big names in the US community like Yo-Yo Factory. Hell, maybe even both. But also maybe neither. Maybe it's possible YoYoJam would have fizzled out. I'm not really qualified to discuss it, and I can't give an accurate guess of where YoYoJam would be today. All I know is that YoYoJam innovated. They pushed forward and contributed in some of the most massive ways to a hobby that's been near and dear to my heart since I was 12. So, thank you, Dale Bell. Thank you for going to that car show in 1996 and fixing your friend's garbage yo-yo. You gave the rest of us our modern yo-yos. You gave us the modern yo-yo.